Sweet, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. The sky above us is our eternal blanket, embracing us from on high, holding the heavens above it and the earth within it. You would think that it would be the most obvious part of our day-to-day wanderings, being so omnipresent and expansive. And yet, instead of something that draws our attention throughout most of our waking moments, the sky is somehow a mere backdrop to which many of us pay little notice. And that lack of attention is to our own detriment. But those with eyes to see can spot a terrifying trend up there, and some of them have the heart of a champion to go forth with their crystal sight, stopping at nothing to make sure that you not only can see the day and all it has to offer you, but also that you live to keep seeing that day for now and for our collective progeny forever. That noble goal is held by one of my heroes, a blessed truth teller, an actual activist, a genuine heart, a traveler of the path, and a person worthy of the rogue title, Matt Landman. Matt, thank you for being here today.
Wow, great intro. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored.
Thank you. Before we jump in, I'm going to remind all the listeners out there that Rogue Ways is part of the Eyes Open Network. The collective of creators is comprised of myself, Benjamin Balderson of Odin's Alchemy, Claude Furry of Talking Nonsense, Steve Poikonen of Slow News Day Podcast, and John Brisson of FixYourGut.com. These beautiful beasts gather once a month under a random phase of the moon to spout ridiculousness at one another, and we record it all for your amusement. So come check out Eyes Open on the Rogue Ways YouTube channel or the Eyes Open Facebook or MeWe group. Also, the Eyes Open Network has a collective of services and goods you can trust from minds that are woke and hearts that are open through our Eyes Open Network page on rogueways.org. So go check that out too to support some badasses who have your best interests at heart. And now for the pointless question of the episode. Matt, what is your favorite way to subvert the programming of a sleeping consciousness on a day-to-day basis?
Eye contact.
Nice.
and flyers, but I've toned down my flyer so much since the beginning. I'm always a work in progress, refining my activism to try to meet people where they're at, right? Which is the most difficult thing in activism, is finding where they're at, whoever it may be, and meeting them on their level, right?
Right.
So I think especially eye contact, and in doing so, there's this humanity met when you actually have when you're actually grounded and you can use your words to come to them, because initially people judge you immediately, right, based on whatever you're talking about or your looks or what have you. But if you can get that eye contact in and meet them on their level and hit them with a few things relative to whatever you're talking to them about, which for me is usually chemtrails, but it can be just about anything. But I think humanity really, I think coming to them on that level and actually, this is one of the first times I'm going to try to look into the camera, because I do these shows and I'm like looking off thinking the whole time. But yeah, I'm even going to try now with the computer, even though this isn't what I mean at all.
Right.
But you know what I mean.
Right. No, it's funny. I was talking to someone recently about that. Like, you can have this illusion that you're making eye contact through the computer, even though you're not. But like, I feel like it still matters somehow, Oh,
it does for sure, because the person watching, that you don't want them to think you're just, spaced it up.
Right. I love that, actually, because eye contact is such a simple thing. And it actually came up recently on another show too, where it's like I feel like people recently have this trend of never making eye contact. And it's kind of disturbing, and I wish that it wasn't a trend. And so I like that that's a very simple thing that anyone can do to connect with people and kind of break through at least a little bit of the programming and find that common humanity again. That's nice.
And to go even deeper on it real quick. For instance, I was just, because of storms and what have you, I was trapped in the Salt Lake City airport for over 30 hours just recently.
My God.
And everybody's on their device, with their Bluetooth headphones, which I do not recommend, and they're glued to their device. And just in a generation's time, when I was a kid, everyone was making eye contact and smiling and having conversation, what have you. But I think it all comes down to the programming. And what is the programming? Fear, right? So if you make eye contact with someone, you're like inviting in someone who's going to come and do something bad to you, right? Like anytime I make that eye contact and I come to someone with a flyer, they are completely shocked that I haven't solicited them for money, asked them for a favor. It's just like, even on my even on the flyer, I've try to. Oh man, I'm so. Either way, I can tell you exactly what it looks like.
Yeah.
It says watch Frankenstein's the movie for free online. You know, I just tell them it's free, so immediately they don't think I'm trying to get something out of them, and then I make it short and sweet and run so that they don't think I'm trying to get something out of them. You know, but it's that. Yeah, that convincing them that brings the humanity out and breaks that frequency of fear, because that's where everyone is, you know. That's and they feel comfortable in their device because somehow that's their comfort tool now.
They've created it and arranged it the way they want it, and it's like a cocoon, you know.
Right.
And I also really like what you're saying about meeting people where they're at, because I think this is something that can be lost on people who are kind of on this path where they were trying to wake other people up or help other people live more healthy and fulfilling lives. I think some people get kind of righteous and condescending and like, you need to recover, you need to, and it's like, if you blame people and you are bringing that kind of energy at them, like they are not going to respond well.
Well,
you have to find out where they're at and try to be there with them.
It's hard for people who have, quote, woken up or come to some realization to remember where they once were.
Yes.
Right. And who they once were, because not everybody's on your journey, on your path, you know.
Right. I love it. That's great. And you said since the beginning. So what was the beginning for you? What was your earliest life like?
Oh, as a kid, I grew up in, I was born in Denver. Oh, wow. And I grew up, we traveled around a bit because my dad was a pilot. Yep.
Cool.
And which is interesting because I ended up in the chemtrail space.
Yeah.
And we ended up in Washington, D.C. because that's where his final commercial piloting gig was for Eastern Airlines. And Eastern ended up going and having some issues, and we went on strike. I was on the picket lines with my dad at a young age, and we settled into the suburbs of Washington, D.C. in the Virginia side, and I grew up there in Herndon, Virginia, and went to high school there, and went to Virginia Tech University, and afterwards I split finally and moved to California, and I really haven't. I bounced back and forth trying to figure out where I wanted to live, like about a dozen times. There's a dozen cross-country trips in there trying to figure out what coast I wanted to live on, but I finally have settled into the West Coast and I don't feel like I'll be changing that up anytime soon.
So is that because when I think of living even near Washington, D.C., I feel like there's got to be just like evil everywhere, because I think of Washington, D.C. as like such an evil place. But was there anything like that, or was it just like a normal seeming place to live?
It's pretty, there's a lot of government contractors, and so there's a lot of people with money and a lot of diversity. I would probably say it's just like any other place, you know. Indoctrination runs deep, and you know, I mean, I can't really think that it would be much different than the rest of the United States, honestly. Yeah.
So then was your father being a pilot anything to do with you kind of waking up, or what kind of happened as you were growing up that made you more aware of the things you're aware of now? Like, did it start young?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about that because people have asked, like, you know, were you a different kid? And I was I'm normal. I'm a normal guy. Yeah. I'm pretty social. I'm an extrovert for sure. I was pretty much friends with everybody. I wasn't like an athlete or a jock or anything, because I was like pretty smaller than most people. You know, like in middle school, I was nicknamed Shrimp, and you know, like, but I was cool, so like I didn't really get picked on or anything. And let's see, I was into nature. I guess the answer to the question is nature.
Yeah.
Because that's just how my life unraveled. Where we grew up, there was this beautiful forest where I grew up, and I was always in there fishing and catching crayfish and all these things. And then when I turned 16, that forest got leveled and got turned into a little highway that went right down to my high school, and I got my license and drove my little car to the, you know, and it was like that era of my life was over. But it wasn't. I was always out there fishing and stuff, even in my 20s, and now I love the ocean and the redwoods, and I'm drawn to nature. And I think the natural world the more I've actually recently thought about it, I think that it's natural and unnatural, right?
Right.
And there needs to be a balance. I think as far as humanity, we're natural, so at least we should have more in the natural world. If not at least 50-50, a balance. And yeah, I think being in the natural world is what pulled me finally. So yeah, it is that, because finally, even after getting my film degree and the master's in business and working in the office, and then I ended up bailing on one finance analyst job and going to another office and working for a nonprofit, thinking it would be better, but I was still trapped inside all day. And then finally, I worked on an organic farm. And that's where I completely woke up to climate engineering, weather modification, all that. You know, that's where I woke up to chemtrails. So yeah, connection to the natural world.
You were outside every day, so you were seeing it.
Exactly.
And when that highway went through that forest, was that kind of a wake up call too, or were you just like, this is progress, this is what happens, or were you kind of like, damn this, why are they destroying it?
It had been planned for a long time, and at the time, it was just a progression for me. I mean, I there wasn't even protest, or I mean, it wasn't like, you know, but I did wish it was, yeah, I didn't want it to happen. I wish my forest was still there, but it was convenient for me to get to my high school really easy now. So, you know, it was just kind of like my progression. It was kind of like, there goes my childhood, and I don't need to be fishing in there anyways, you know, anymore. I don't know.
You kind of moved along with it. It wasn't necessarily like a huge problem, but when you're out, finally in that organic farm, was that kind of like a return to something that you had already kind of known, but you like understood it better? Or was it just brand new? Like, oh, this is what the world is like now. The sky looks like that now.
Well, to back up. Okay. So where I grew up is called Herndon, Virginia, in Northern Virginia. And it was very rural and country as I was a kid. And then all of a sudden there was this turning point where it became a city, and now that you can hop on the train, it goes right to DC and all this stuff. So everything was just kind of changing around me as I turned into an adult. So it was kind of an acceptance thing. And to answer the farming question, it was amazing, because day one, I felt this connection to some sort of ancestry, something that was within me that and it was a feeling I never ever had before. Wow. And it was weird because it came from the potatoes, and it's weird because my last name's Landman, right? But
it came from the potatoes.
Yeah, so the potatoes.
Landman.
I worked on an organic farm, and we grew over a dozen varieties of potatoes, which I didn't even know that there were so many. There's so many different varieties of so many different things, of everything.
Yeah, because you just see like one or two in the store, and that's all you ever see. Yeah.
And what's incredible about the potatoes even is the story is the Incans, they selectively bred for generations. They bred the poison by selectively breeding the less poisonous potatoes. They bred the poison out of the potatoes over generations to give us this abundant vegetable that we now have. But my first day on this organic farm, I saw the potato plant, and I didn't know what it was. I'd never seen one before. And honest to God, I didn't even know that potatoes grew potatoes. And that's this line that I like to bring home for everyone because of the indoctrination, all this education and everything. And I did not know, like, this disconnect to food that we have, right? Yeah. And this is the purposeful disconnect. But the first time I saw a potato plant in the ground, I had this urge to pull it out of the ground. I was like, why would I do that? I'd be killing it, you know? But I feel like that my ancestors, I mean, obviously we're pulling up the potatoes and we're eating them.
Yeah.
The root, if you don't know, the root base of the potato plant, all of the roots are these potatoes, evidently, which I can't believe that in my mid-30s, I've got a master's degree.
Yeah.
I went through public education, Fairfax County Public Schools, claimed to be top in the nation, number 1, number 2. Wow. They claim, you know, and I got good grades. I went to a good university. And I didn't know potatoes grew potatoes. It's pretty important.
It is very important. It's essential. I intentionally kept from us, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. So that's a powerful experience from potatoes. It's just the reason why you saying potatoes, it started with potatoes, messed with me is because I just did a show last night on Frankenfoods and like the food systems and how messed up they are. And somebody said that it started with potatoes, but they were referring to genetically modified foods. And I like said that and it like echoed in my head. I was like, wait, it started with potatoes.
And I'd like to say, I'd like to say while we're there is in these different truth spaces, for one, I feel like you can't be half pregnant, that if you're awake to truth, that you can't just pick and say, oh, I eat organic, but there's no such thing as chemtrails or whatever, or vaccines are cool, but
Right.
you know, don't drink the fluoride. It's all encompassing, and that's one thing that we have to realize, and that's going to be our way to unify. I feel it's going to be our blessing, but right now it's our curse because we're divided purposefully as well. We're under this over umbrella of conspiracy theorists so that we can't unite with our other fellow humans, right? Us, you know, our human being brothers and sisters. Either way, I digress. So I pride myself in being able to simplify things, okay? Yes. And in the genetically modified space, already the word genetically modified organism, you know, and conventional, oh, it's just conventional food. No, organic is actually should be called conventional because organic is you don't do anything to it.
Amen.
Right? And it's what it has always been,
yes.
Right? And so either way, GMO, for people who want to be able to convey the message to their family, friends, and peers and what have you, which is what an activist is, right? And you don't know exactly what to say and how to say it, I recommend this very simple way to explain genetically modified foods is their genes have been altered so that they can withstand poison that would otherwise completely kill that plant. And it wouldn't be agriculture, it would be just shriveled up dead because of the poison that was sprayed on it. And this poison cannot be washed off. It goes deep inside the plant, right? And I do realize there's another side where there's a genetically modified aspect to it where it's actually has pesticide embedded in it, so the bug bites it and then it dies because you know it's got this embedded thing in it. But just explaining that the poison no longer kills the plants, and then you're eating that poison, it's so simple, and things get so lost in all the details. It's so hard to convey these messages because the powers that be, they confuse with their disinformation, misinformation, and people are left all confused and they can't get down to meeting people at their level and simplifying the topics and finding a place to like sink in. And people want to be able to sink their teeth into something and be able to, oh, I don't do that because of this. Like if you can't read the ingredients, don't eat it. And then people think, oh, well, I've never even read ingredients.
Yeah.
You start looking and something's got a big list, and the other thing is like two things that you're familiar with. Starts to resonate with you slowly but surely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I like that. Well, and I like we were referencing last night too, that people think like, well, we've always genetically modified. Like you even just described the Incas like chose the less poisonous potatoes and propagated those so that we have this this plant now that's not poisonous, but that's not genetically modifying. I mean, what I guess maybe over a long time the genes are mutating to create this different being, but it was a natural progression and process. No one went in and like cut out a chunk of genes and set in some new genes. It's a very different process. So people intentionally muddy that as well.
Yeah, it's intentionally muddied, exactly. And it's like, oh, we've been doing it forever. No, that's called selective breeding. Okay. Yes. And selective breeding is a part of nature, right? We have purple cauliflower that we can just plant the purple cauliflower seeds and grow the purple cauliflower because farmers over generations took the seeds took the cauliflower that was more purple and kept that and bred it with the more purple and kept breeding that kind of thing. It's just like if beautiful people mate, they'll have beautiful babies. It's just that's it, right? And that has nothing to do with going into a lab and altering genetics so that it can withstand poison. It's completely different. And yeah, exactly. They muddy the waters on that. They make it so confusing that you don't know because you're not a specialist, that then you give away your power to these specialists who are then maybe bought or whatever, or they're, controlled opposition or releasing misinformation to program you the opposite way of the truth, to have you believing and promoting falsehoods.
Well, and like that idea of a specialist in itself is kind of, I hate it because I know there are specialists and I get that there are people who have this more experience and more knowledge about something. And so you should listen to them. But the idea that like the regular person isn't capable of understanding because they're not a specialist, I feel like is it's a horrible thing who is it? I think it was Richard Feynman, super cool, really intelligent guy. I'm pretty sure it was him. If it wasn't him, it was Buckminster Fuller, who was like, if you can't explain your most difficult concepts and theories and studies to a child, then you don't understand it well enough. So like to say that we're not specialists and dismiss us is, we should not buy into that. Like they should be able to explain it to us. And if they can't, they probably don't get it either.
Exactly. It's passing on your power to whoever it may be, the guy in the white coat, and giving away your ability to discern, okay, which is, I believe, one of the most important things of our lifetime, is what I'm realizing, is our ability to resonate into this ability to discern. We're given this age of disinformation and fake this and false information and fake news, and science is being bought, right? And you've got Coca-Cola funding a study that now science says that Coca-Cola is more hydrating than water, because the Coca-Cola funded study, and they can pay their way to the top of the Google search even, right? And this Coca-Cola funded study claims that if you drink a certain amount of Coke versus a certain amount of water, you'll urinate more water, therefore you're less hydrated, and Coca-Cola is more hydrating than H2O, right? And so you can either take authority as the truth, or you can take truth as the authority. Nice. And we're given this amazing opportunity to hone in on our gut and our heart and actually learn to discern. Oh, and it rhymes. I'm gonna steal that one.
That is really nice.
But yeah, okay, so that's really cool. And so it's like, it's part of like growing as a spiritual being and what have you, is the more bullshit we get fed, we actually get to honor the truth with integrity and take it in and learn how to, because I've been learning how to trust and ask my gut and intuition. But my path was actually really crazy. I was really worried about money in my family at the age of like 14 to 15. So I started studying this and trading and winning and losing and all this in the stock market. And I started every morning, because whenever I lost my ass, I could feel it. It was a knot in my gut, like as it happened, no matter where I was, I could feel it happening. And even part of my life journey has been just learning how to listen to my gut. Nice. And feel, right? And it started with the evil stock market, but it's turned into everything. So when I meet people and look into their eyes, and oh man, if you look into the eyes of this, the Business Week, I don't know if you've seen it, there's a Business Week front page of Mark Zuckerberg, and he looks like a total robot. Yeah. And the satire is like showing this code like he is a robot, hidden in plain sight, because maybe he actually is. And
maybe he actually is, yeah.
But my gut really, I had pain. Like, it was really weird experience yesterday. I had this horrible, no good feeling. Which when you look into someone who's righteous, you can feel like, once you start to cultivate this discernment, it's with all these things. Like when Elon Musk shot this convertible into space and it was completely fabricated. Are you gonna insult your intelligence and your gut and your intuition and give away your powers? Because maybe that's what they're doing, is taking away your powers for further falsehoods. And maybe, just maybe, we live in a co-created reality where we're the co-creator manifestors, and if they can control the way that we perceive things, we're perceiving a world that's not to our benefit.
Yeah, it's a perfectly excellent point. And that idea too, that if we don't even know that we have that ability that you're talking about to check in with ourselves and understand if something is true or good or, whatever, then that, like, they've completely disempowered us. Where can you go if you can't even know what is right or wrong or good for you?
Exactly.
Yeah. So and by the way, when that happened, I seriously heard about it and I was like, are we joking? Is anybody believing this? Like, and then I saw that people did, and I was like, I don't even remember what it would have been like to buy into that. But like you said, like, it's hard to remember where you came from, where you are. And I'm sure that I would have at some point bought into that, but I cannot connect with it anymore. And I don't know, I don't want to lose that connection of knowing that I was not always where I am. I don't ever want to look down on people for buying into it, but I also don't understand how you buy into it.
You buy into it by convincing yourself these famous words that I've heard so many times, over and over again. They would never do that to us.
True.
Which is like, they would never lie to us. Like,
why would they do this, right?
Yeah. Or the why. The why is the first thing that always comes up, because people want to know the who, what, why, where, when, and how before they can believe anything. Because they've got their mental construct already built, and then you want to come and break their paradigm and and shatter their wall of cognitive dissonance and maybe, you know, change the way that they see the world.
Yeah.
They need to know all that first, the who, what, why, where, when, you know. So that's another one. Hey, can I grab a flyer that's right over here?
Yes, please do. I would love to see it.
Cool.
Well, that thing you're describing, I think, is really powerful, because it's when you don't have the answer for why they would do that, because I'm not sure. I just know that it's fake. I'm not exactly sure what their end game is or why they're going to such great lengths to try to convince us. And so then people automatically just don't believe it. They're like, well, why would they do it? And you're like, I don't know. And they're like, well, screw you then. Like, okay.
Right. And I'm a thinker too. I'm a thinker and I'm a Scorpio, and I have to run things through my head until I can come up with the most likely scenario. I've taken some serious statistics class, especially when I got the master's in business, and it all comes down to stats for me. And so if I can get to like a 98% chance of whatever, then I can move on. Yeah. Right? It's like you don't have to know everything. So I really want to take a pause here and talk about our humanity yet again, and how amazing it's been for me to not just make this film Frankenskies, but also to get censored, right? And then to take it full circle and be so happy to bring it home to people in face-to-face, one-on-one contact, because it's all part of the universe's plan, whatever it may be, or God's plan, or whatever. Everything is happening, even though it seems like it's not. I feel like it's all in this perfect synchronized manner, because these things, the way things develop, it's unreal. So now I'm face to face with people, whereas when I had 20,000 followers on Facebook, and my posts and my Facebook lives and all that stuff, when that was getting out there, I would have turned into a hobbit, because I was reaching people. But then now I've got twice as many followers. I'm at 40,000. And I make a post and maybe one person clicks like, because it's censored so heavily. It's
so censored. I've seen your posts only have like 3 responses. And I'm like, that's not realistic at all.
Find anyone on Facebook that has 40,000 followers and gets 1 like on anything. Right. So, I mean, just saying, and I'm not trying to say, you know, it's my ego, because people automatically, oh yeah, your ego. No, like, let's just be logical here.
Just logic.
So I've refined my flyers. I was passing out these flyers that had all these words on them, and people don't want to be schooled. Yeah. People don't want to, you know, all these things. There's all these things about your people, the people that you're trying to reach. And so here is what I've got thus far. And so I'm going to show it nice and up close. But first, I just want to say that artwork, and people want to feel like they've gotten something. Yeah. But also, it's your passion. Okay. So what are you passionate about? Do you really think that it's important for people to have their own garden, to learn about gardening? Well, if you have the passion, then try out this one-on-one contact. I swear it'll change your life forever, right? And it's a process. You start looking at people in their eyes. You start talking to people a different way. And it's amazing the interactions that you can have. Not everybody's going to be a home run hitter, you know? That's just the way it is. But you can really come and meet people in your community that you never would have even realized are down the street on your block, believing the same way as you, waiting for you to come talk to them. It's amazing the world that we live in. So my passion for the past 3.5, 4 years has been geoengineering chemtrails. Okay, and I made this film, Frankenskies, and I was blessed. I was blessed with a friend, Nicole Vetrano, who made this Frankenskies artwork, and it says Frankenskies the documentary: the lies in our skies exposed.
It's beautiful.
I was also blessed with this artist out of Los Angeles. His name is Mir One. Mir One made this canvas painting.
Wow.
For me, and this is the original cover art, and it's got cell towers all up in it, and it's beautiful.
5G towers, I love it.
Yeah, which was a couple years ago. He's a genius. Yeah. And you know, well ahead of his time. And then here it says, watch Frankenskies online for free! Exclamation point. And it says frankenskiesthemovie.com, which is the website.
I love that.
And then it's like you lead a horse to water. You give the human the artwork with the website, and you're really quick with it. And I've given it to people who have just been really good with it. My friend made a movie, please check it out. I say, I made a movie, please check it out.
Yeah.
And then if I see someone that I can really resonate with immediately, which when I was stranded in Salt Lake City for 30 days at the airport, one person I saw that I was like, oh, and I go, I made a chemtrail movie, and he's like, awesome, brother, thank you, I'll check it out, right?
That's awesome.
Because I knew he would know, because I can,
Could feel it.
I can feel it. I'm really learning to discern, and feel my gut, and trust. Really, you have to trust that you're actually really more than you've been told.
Yes.
But there's so many different things that everyone out there I know is passionate about, right? And just go into your local farmer's market and getting something tangible in your hand that you can give them and talk and open up this conversation. You know who's really awake and amazing? The vendors at your farmer's market.
Yeah,
okay?
True.
Everybody listening, somebody somewhere, you have a vendor at your farmer's market who is awake to chemtrails and wants to talk about it, and might not even know, and probably doesn't even know about the film my film Frankenskies, which they would love to hear about. These people are there, and they're totally tuned in and amazing, but they're not going to start that conversation with you because they just want to sell you their vegetables and be happy. They don't want to burst your bubble or anything, or have you think of them differently, because we're programmed to be divided, especially in this current administration. We're even more divided than we've ever been before, right. And when we're compartmentalized, we're not coming together on our humanity and changing the world and making it the better place that we all can. We're looking at each other, and we're not even looking at each other. We're afraid of each other, and we are compartmentalized to the point that everyone's our enemy.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's like the downfall of us, if we let it be, is not connecting to each other. I love that you're doing that now, where you're going out, that you have been doing that and actually connecting with people. And I think it's a terrifying prospect for people to do that. But I think it's what changes the world, like literally changes the world, is that exact thing that you're describing, because, we're afraid that if we go out and we connect with people, they're going to look at us and they're going to say like, well, that person's crazy, and they're going to dismiss us. And something we tend to fear more than death, which is insane, is being excluded from the group, right? Like falling out of favor. But I think what you're saying is true, and what you seem to have been experiencing is true, is that most people aren't actually as unaware of things as we might think, based on our, the picture of the world we've been given is not realistic. And we've been given this picture that everyone is asleep and unaware. But I think it turns out that more people are aware of more things than we think.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. And it's exactly true. You be floored. I mean, we're told that we're the minority, that the truth is the minority, and to get in line, and that's how people have been controlled for quite some time.
Yeah, and it is sad. I mean, there was someone at my workplace, I try to never talk about anything, because I just don't. I'm already like kind of a target for people, it seems like, and so I don't want to give them any more fuel to attack me with. I am kind of open with my students about things, and I'll drop conspiracy nuggets and like little bits here and there to try to pique their interest in things. But a coworker of mine, after I left the school that she was at, brought up chemtrails to someone, and they came to me and they were like, can you believe this person thinks that they're spraying poisons on us to try to kill us all? And I was like, what do you mean? Like on our food? Because I wanted to be like, they are. And then she said, no, from the sky. And then I don't know what it is about chemtrails that I'm like, this is one of my failures. I did not say like they are. And you can look up and see it. And here's this documentary that this guy made, you should go look at it. Or have you ever looked into it? Or are you just judging it, or anything like that? I just was like, oh, and then said nothing. And I'm like, that is where we have to be braver, right? To say something, just anything. Be like, not let that lady just get thrown under the bus and painted to be a crazy person. She's clearly not. She actually knows something.
So it's okay. And it's, the problem is very deep. And here's what it is, okay? Chemtrails are not just spraying poison on people to kill us all. That is a very, very extreme, okay, on the whole chart of it all, right?
Right.
It's very extreme. That would be like me saying something really crazy about GMOs.
Right.
Right? Instead of what I said earlier. which is
Right.
very simple and fact-based, right? If I said, oh, they're poisoning all the GMOs so that they sterilize humanity and transhumanism and they're all
Yeah.
gonna, it might be true.
Might be. Right.
Right? But you're not meeting them at their level.
Right.
Wow, we went full circle. I love it.
Yay.
We're
I do
doing
too.
pretty good so far.
Nice.
Okay? So like, you got to come to people on their level. And that lady is not being met on her level if someone, or even her conception of it, because the media has made the mental construct of the public's eye of chemtrails into the crazy conspiracy. We're all being sprayed with poison. They're killing us all.
Right.
Okay. And that is so extreme. Okay. And then you've got solar radiation management, which is dimming the sun, and you've got big oil and big coal trying to make sure solar power doesn't proliferate, and it makes sense. And it's a little more fact-based, and you look into it, the documents are there, and you can meet people, even people who want to do a little research, you can meet them at their level. But
That's
you
true.
see where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
So
Like I could have said, weather engineering has been a thing for over 100 years.
That's
and
what I
are
was going to
spraying
say.
things in the sky. Oh, sorry.
That's what I was going to say. No, you're good, because that's exactly what, you could plant that seed, be like, yeah, I've seen some questionable things in the sky, but I've also learned about weather engineering and also geoengineering, which is being launched as a solution to global warming. What do you think about this global warming thing? They say sea levels are rising, but have you ever seen sea levels rising? Have you ever been somewhere that's zero sea level and it's risen?
Right.
I question their official explanation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
But why has it taken so long for a no sea level to rise?
Right. You can plant seeds, right?
Right.
But I feel you. I have a friend, and she's a teacher, first grade, and she just was at a faculty meeting, and they were totally demonizing this one kid because his dad is a conspiracy theorist who believes in chemtrails. And she could feel the room be like, because she's at a Waldorf school, which is even more open-minded. So some of the people in the room and nobody wants to have that argument, right?
Yeah,
especially in a workplace. And then it's this demonization from your peers. It's the ridicule psychology.
Right.
Okay. So the ridicule psychology, whether it's true or not, it divides the crap out of everybody. And it's ingrained in our psychology. All right. So I don't want to talk about anything to do with astronomy or flat earth or anything like that. But when we're young, we're told that these people thought that the boats were going over the edge and how stupid they were. And everyone knew that they were stupid. Don't you believe it? They're stupid. Right. And I mean, we're in like second grade. And already we're being entrained with ridicule psychology for people who don't think the way that the masses are told to think.
Good
right.
point.
And when you're ridiculed, your peers, you've lost your peers, and that's, like you said earlier, that's people's worst nightmare. Is all of a sudden your peers have turned against you, and you're like we're like wolves. We're not sheep. We're not sheep. We're told to be sheep. We're wolves, and we don't want to lose the pack because that's what we thrive on, right? That's how, I mean, we're beings of interaction and harmonious, like
we die
family and everything,
right?
So
absolutely, yeah. And I think we feel like we can face anything as long as we have people with us. But if we have no one with us, like we feel like we can't face anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful fear. And it's a good point. We're very, very young and we're already being trained with fear. If you think this, everyone will hate you.
Exactly.
Damn.
Exactly.
I'm not going to think that. And then you just never question it again, right? It's buried in like a world of fear and conditioning that's so old. You lost the questioning strand that you could have ever had. I think we've already like addressed this pretty well, but what is it truly like inside of you that you love that leads you on in this journey, even when it's hard? Actually, let's take a step back. What are some of the hardships that you've had to face while doing this type of work?
Okay. Firstly, being an activist is amazing. I would encourage everyone to follow their passion. There's no other better thing that you could do with your life, in my opinion. Okay. Hardships, yes. Yes, right. And there's activists out there that I don't even necessarily trust that focus all on the fear and the hardships, and maybe even make up these hardships that maybe aren't even real, you know.
Yeah.
And to what? Prevent you from getting empowered and inspired and wanting to be the change you want to see in the world, just become an activist, right? Like,
Interesting.
it's really simple. So hardships that I faced are censorship for sure.
Right.
Also, yeah, you know, a lot of different things that go into some weird personal space. I hosted a conference in Tucson, Arizona last year. It
Cool.
was the third global chemtrail summit, or the Summit to Stop Geoengineering. It was huge. It was very important, and it was the highlight of my life.
I
And
love that.
it was something else. Okay, so I'd made the movie Frankenskies, and I'd hosted about a dozen events surrounding chemtrails and bringing awareness to that. But then David Keith, the primary solar geoengineering bad evil guy with his funding from Bill Gates, who wants to dim our sun. Okay, he's the guy. He's publicly now saying we're going to spray the skies, we're going to dim the sun. David Keith was to launch this experiment in Tucson, Arizona, to show the world, here I can spray aluminum in front of your sun. The experiment worked. We're going to now spray your skies. The experiment was to happen last year. Okay, it was to happen last year. So I moved to Arizona, hosted this conference, went on all these shows leading up to it, including Coast to Coast with a couple million live listeners, and I packed the place, right? And it was so intense, the whole thing leading up to it, culminating at it, and then finally, so many waves were created in Tucson before, during, and after this conference, protest, and concert that I hosted. The experiment got delayed. It didn't happen.
Yes.
Which was huge. Yeah, that was like
huge.
That's the biggest thing that I could have ever. I'm very honored to have been able to do something that's like amazing like that. So
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, and I really want to somehow encourage and inspire people. I've got this listserv of emails that I don't want to bother people with, but I do want to write something up encouraging people, saying we did that.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah.
You know.
No,
so
it's amazing, because that, like, you are changing the world. The more you can encourage people and empower people to realize that they are capable of doing that too, the more likely it is to keep going.
And then the next year, mind you, we ended up with this polar vortex. We ended up with snow in Tucson, snow in Las Vegas. Okay, and now they're still coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, wait, we're still going to do that experiment to dim your sun. Don't worry." But I think the mentality around, the public awareness around dimming the sun might not be as exciting anymore now that we just got snow in Vegas. But still, people are controllable and what have you. But that experiment has yet to unfold. And it's now May 2019. 1 year ago, we had the conference. So either way, that conference, after I gave my impassioned speech, because I spoke and other activists spoke, I had this provocateur, this guy who was definitely paid to come and yell and scream and harass me. And it interrupted the whole conference. And I called the police and I told the guy to leave. And in my frustration, he had this big oversized styrofoam cup. And in my frustration, I whacked it out of his hand as he waved it in front of me.
Oh no.
I got arrested.
What?
For assault.
Oh my God.
And then I had to go through all this, and he got charged with disturbing the peace. And I had to fight. I had to go through this whole thing to make his charges get dropped so that I would have that as currency when I went to court. And said, look, I got his charges dropped. I don't want any trouble. I didn't even touch the guy. My conference, blah, 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 saved the world. You know, either way, I got the charges dropped. But that was a big freaking headache, man. It was crazy. And that's just one thing. And that took me, I don't have income like that, or time and energy and all. And the conference alone, I did have an amazing crowd fund. I raised $5,000. Which was incredible, and I made stopgeoengineeringtucson.com and brought in all those activists and hosted it and streamed it live and did the concert and all that stuff. But even after all of that, I'm still like, broke and like, all these things, right? But you wouldn't believe it as you just let go and trust and trust and trust. And you're like, I'm an activist and I'm giving this back to the world. Like I've had the most amazing stories, like where I've just, I mean, it'll always come to you. It always will. And when you really need it, again, great opportunity to talk about my crowdfund.
Yeah.
So I have a current crowdfund called Protection Clothing. It's gofundme.com/protection clothing. And I'm raising money because I'm making a clothing line. It's called Spero, Spero, which is Latin for hope. And the catchphrase is, wherever there is hope, there's always a silver lining. And all of the clothing, the maternity wear, the baby blanket, the men's underwear, the hats, t-shirt, sweatshirt, all of the clothing is lined with silver, because silver deflects radiation from Wi-Fi, from smart meters, from 5G, from 4G, from these cell phone towers, all that sort of stuff, because we're entering an age where we need some sort of peaceful tactics of risk mitigation to the exposure of electromagnetic fields and radio frequency, non-ionizing radiations that may be pretty detrimental to our health, and especially our children and the next generation. We need to be able to protect them because this radiation is actually cumulative. So over time, we're going to see these impacts. And most of us that are watching this, we weren't even, when we were born, none of this stuff existed. We weren't exposed to any of this stuff growing up. So
we didn't even have, we barely had cordless phones. By the time I was like a teenager, we had some of those around more often, and maybe a few people had cell phones, but they were like really, really rare. It's crazy. We definitely did not have Wi-Fi. We barely had internet. Things have changed a lot. I love that though. I want to own that clothing and rock that clothing and promote that clothing, because I think about it a lot. Like, what can we do to protect ourselves more? And like you're saying, at least mitigate some of it, so that we can keep going. Because I think, without some of the detoxifying steps I've taken and things like this, like wearing clothing like this and other, like I start to notice my mind gets like slower and my body feels like bogged down. And I think you can see the effects, and I think they want those effects. And so if you're not mitigating it, like it's going to be even harder for you to see any of the truth or fight against it or think about how to fight against it. I just think it's really important and critical. And I love that you're pursuing that and bringing that into the world.
Thank you. And also, while we're talking about mitigation techniques, I think it's really important to take your health into your own hands. Unfortunately, the doctors are full of it.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Antidepressant medication, and it literally has homicidal tendencies. Not just suicidal tendencies, which is on there, but homicidal tendencies proven in the court of law, because people who have taken this drug have committed homicide.
Yes.
Okay, we're being given these chemicals, and it's okay. It's not okay. The injections with the flu shots and all these different pharmaceuticals and vaccine schedules, if you look at the ingredients and trust your gut and just ask yourself, is this okay? Okay, so we have to take a step back and realize that it's up to us now. We can't just give away our authority. It's up to us. Otherwise, we're going to the store and we're buying everything that's colorful. And then all that colorful stuff is making us poison. And then we're going and we're getting radiated with chemo because everything's okay. And no. All right, let's take a step back. All right, and slowly learn that fluoride in the toothpaste and fluoride in the water, it's not good, because fluoride takes the aluminum in your body, takes it past your blood-brain barrier, and brings aluminum into your brain. Okay, because fluoride can pass the blood-brain barrier and actually escorts that aluminum. All right, so there's different things that we need to learn about. So firstly, I'm just going to go on this little health tangent, because some of these things are just really important for people to grasp. Firstly, we're all mineral deficient. We are all deficient in minerals. All right. So there's plant-based minerals out there, a whole list of them. On that list is gold, silver, even aluminum.
Wow.
Okay, zinc, all these things, but they're plant-based minerals. We're lucky enough in the United States to have Utah, which has all these mineral supplements out of them because of all these ancient fossil beds and forests that are compressed and whatever. And over time, you just end up with plant-derived, water-soluble minerals. All right, you go to the minerals hot springs and you soak in these minerals and you absorb them. It's all of this plant-based stuff, sulfur, you name it. It's a huge list. It's crazy, the list. Words I can't even begin to pronounce, right? And this stuff was all in our soil 100 years ago, okay? All of it. And it was in our squash and our vegetables and stuff because that's growing in our soil 100 years ago. So our DNA was getting all those things. I'm talking hundreds of minerals 100 years ago. Now, to grow anything in the ground, we need nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPK. That takes you through growing up all big, flowering, and producing fruit. 3 things. So do you think the farmers are putting gold and silver and platinum and palladium in the soil? No, it's expensive, right? So our bodies are mineral deficient compared to where we are as electrical beings, completely thriving, right? I went to the mineral hot springs last night. I got out of the hot springs after a few hours, which I really overdo it because I love saunas and all this sort of stuff. My eyes were like bright yellow. I'd never seen anything like it. I have brown eyes. I was just so electric and feeling so good. It's unreal because we're so deficient. And I'll tell you what, for one, we don't have it in any of our foods anymore, but also we consume sugar, all right? And for every molecule of sugar that you ingest, it takes 54 molecules of magnesium to process that one molecule of sugar, okay? Jesus. So to process sugar in your body, it eats up, it drains all these minerals. So your body's now wanting to get those minerals back. So it's absorbing minerals from the air and your environment, hoping to get the good minerals. But instead, it's getting chemicals that are not plant-based, that are maybe in our air, like strontium. But if we were up to speed on our strontium, we wouldn't be absorbing the strontium from the air because we'd already have like calcium in our bones. But instead, our bodies are confusing the strontium with calcium and absorbing it because we need those minerals. We're desperate for these minerals. But there's things like shilajit, Shilajit. It's a mineral pitch from like the Himalayas, and it's just this mineral dense. You can get minerals, all right? Or you can eat really good. For instance, magnesium, to get up to speed on your magnesium, you can also take an Epsom salt bath and try that out and do the mineral hot springs. But also the central atom in the chlorophyll molecule, okay, chlorophyll is greens, is magnesium. Ooh. So leafy greens, juicing your greens, but we have to eat healthy because when we're getting these chemicals, we're depleting ourselves of these minerals, right? The worse we eat, the worse we are off in minerals, and then we start absorbing the toxins from the environment. We're not up to speed, right? So colloidal silver, these different conductive elements that we don't get anymore, we used to get all the time in our family ancestry, and these genetics, we still have these genes that are used to getting those minerals. So then also when we absorb these chemicals, we can chelate them, CHELATE, if you want to look it up, it's like chelate, which I'm sure a lot of people I'm preaching to the choir, but some, I'm not. So you can get you can get the bad chemicals like aluminum, strontium, what have you. You can get these bad chemicals out of your body by chelating, right? Which you can take different plants to pull these things out. You can take chlorella, spirulina, food-grade diatomaceous earth. There's a volcanic ash called zeolite. So there's different ways you can visit a naturopath or just do some simple research. But like the spirulina and the chlorella, they're from the ocean. They're simple cell algae that just attract and bind to the chemicals in your body. And I especially recommend saunas to just flush things out. Even fasting for 24 hours is amazing. Fasting resets your body. Learning a lot about fasting and alkaline versus acidic. Our bodies thrive in alkaline and acidic environments, especially with sugar, feed disease and cancer and what have you. So you want to learn about what alkaline is. Dr. Sebi, S-E-B-I, he claimed and treated people and cured every ailment from AIDS to cancer with just an alkaline-rich diet.
Wow.
No acidic diet. Acidic diet is like Coca-Cola, pepperoni pizza, coffee's really acidic. So just
everything we eat every day, basically.
Everything that we eat a lot of. So just learning about this and taking your health into your own hands. I had some wicked bad cavities, and I was going through some depression before activism, and I just started swishing my mouth with coconut oil and not brushing my teeth because I was just like, screw the world. And the cavities went away. Coconut oil heals cavities, believe it or not. Like, trust me on that. And it also is a part of this oil pulling Ayurvedic methodology of pulling toxins out of your body in the morning, especially. But what the coconut oil does is it removes the bad bacteria and lets good bacteria thrive. But there's all these things that you can do to make yourself a happier, healthier person. Also, learn about blue light. All right. So we're going to segue into a new topic.
Yes.
Is that cool?
Yes. Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
And then, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're still fine.
Okay, because I have this, my computer has this loud fan, and I don't want to, I can smack my computer if need be. And it does actually fix the fans.
If you want to, you can smack it. I also have a loud, like, I have cars that go by, and like I'm by a busy road, so we're together in our sound problem.
Okay. If it gets overwhelming, I can literally try whacking my computer. Okay, so not that I'm a violent person, but it works. Okay, so we're in this world of electromagnetics, and now we have to learn about this. Ta-da! You know, I am a farmer slash restaurant. You know, I used to work in a lot of restaurants. I like the food industry, and I've worked in a lot of business. And so to put myself in a box, I don't know, but I call myself farmer slash business guy because I'm launching a company and I've got an MBA. But here I am. I've got to learn about electricity and wireless radiation, and now I'm becoming this 5G activist and stuff like that because we have to roll with the punches and learn about the world that we live in.
Yes.
Right? I mean, to not learn about and know about the food that we're putting in our bodies is beyond ignorance, and I'm sorry. Right? So we have to learn that eating not organic strawberries, not organic apples, all right? These things are actually more detrimental to our health than not eating the fruit, than just starving yourself. You'd be better off.
Right.
Okay. And if you do the research, you'll learn why. There's this thing called the Dirty Dozen, these 12 fruits and vegetables that you want to stick to organic because they have so many pesticides, herbicides, poisons on them, genetic modifications that they're going to mess you up and cause.
A lot of them are the ones that we want the most and that's why they're poisoning them so much, is because every living thing wants them the most because they're like the ones that are the most delicious. They probably at some point have like the highest nutrient content or something. So it is worth looking at that list because you're probably eating a lot of things on there. Yeah,
good point. So, and then also a lot of this can be found on my website, actualactivists.com. When I first got into activism, someone who I later learned was likely CIA. They said, "Oh, you better stick to just chemtrails. You don't want to do any other topics." And that really didn't resonate with me. So I found the top topics of activism that I felt were the most untalked about and most important, which is GMO, fluoride, chemtrails, and vaccines. But then the website encompasses everything possible. And I've got this blog, and if you go to the website and dig, you'll learn something, I promise. So please, if you can check that out. So on there, you'll learn about the Dirty Dozen and also blue light. So this is something really important. And if you can grasp this and convey this message, especially you, I know you work with teens, which is important because the youth, they're being kind of blindsided with this technology and the information is being kept from them. We're in a world of frequency, and nobody learns about Nikola Tesla.
Yeah.
That's simple enough that something's being blocked from us. So
heavily manipulated.
So check it out. We have eyeballs that I learned actually in film school that we see 24 frames per second, which is really interesting. So we see 24 pictures per second. So we have this.
So can I clarify? Because I've heard that before. Are you saying that, because I heard that that's what film is 24 pictures per second. But are you saying that even if we're not watching a movie in real life, we're looking at it, we're seeing 24 like snapshots a second or something?
That's the speed at which we perceive reality.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
So it's interesting that we have this specific lens through which we see things, and in that lens, we can pick up this certain spectrum of light, right? And I mentioned the frames per second thing because I just think it's interesting. Because if you speed up the way that we see things to a certain rate, it's sped up or it's slowed down. Like that's just the way we see things. We're not taking 24 pictures, as far as I know. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, but either way, but I know what you're saying, and it's interesting even to
imagine it that way.
To take a step back and actually look at ourselves through a different lens and the way that in which we perceive reality. And in quantum mechanics, we're actually popping in and out of existence. And either way,
trip, yeah.
Yeah. So we see light, and we see light because of its size, right? Green light and yellow light are different in size, but they're all the same speed, 186,000 miles per second. That's the speed of light. And 186,000 miles per second is the speed of also radio waves, which is what we get all this information carried on for our cell phones and Wi-Fi and radio. So there comes to be a point when the size of the radio wave really matters, because our bodies, which are biological beings of light, and we have a chemistry that's set to this clock of the Earth, because everything has this frequency, which I'll get to. And I'm not doing a good job of looking at the edits. I'm sorry. I'll do better. So
you were for a really long time.
Yeah, I was. It's hard, man.
It's I
want to look at you because I'm talking to you, and then I want to think, and I've got these things that I'm referring to my brain to these books I've seen in the library recently. So long story short, radio waves are just like light waves, all right? And as they get smaller, the smallest radio wave we can get to is 1 millimeter. And that's what 5G is. So all this talk of 6G, 7G, whatever, that's actually all propaganda, misinformation, disinformation. The technology ends here with this very, very small size wave, which is as small as radio frequency waves can carry, which is the millimeter size wave, which is actually the same size wave used in body scanners at airports, 1 millimeter size wave, okay? So light waves are a little smaller than that, right? But our bodies will perceive 5G as light, which is interesting. But we're gonna just talk about blue light for now for a second. So on the color spectrum of what we see, you've got the rainbow. And that all those light colors are based on their size. And the bigger waves are red on this one side of the rainbow. And slightly bigger than red is infrared. And we can't see it because it just isn't in the way our eyes see stuff, okay? We can't see because it's outside of our range of perception, which is really interesting because it's still there.
Right.
Infrared light. And then smaller, on the smaller side, all the way on the side of the rainbow, is blue. We can see blue. And it's much smaller in size than red over here. And it's the smallest in color that we can perceive. And a little smaller than blue is ultraviolet. And we can't see ultraviolet, but it's there. Right. And if we get too much of it, it burns our skin and it can mess up our eyes, right? That's why you don't look in the sun and all that stuff. So this is really easy to convey and important. Ultraviolet light's what comes off the sun. And we have a biological, chemical rhythm that's set and tuned to the sun and to the earth, which is the Schumann resonance, which is 7.8 hertz. Okay, a hertz is how many times the frequency wave, which everything is waves, light waves and all that stuff, how many times the wave goes by per second is hertz. Heinrich Hertz, okay, he is the one that studied electromagnetic frequency and waves, and he was around so much EMF that he died at the age of 36. Heinrich Hertz. So how many times it goes by per second is the hertz, and the earth actually has this magnetic pulse. It creates a hertz of 7.8 hertz, and we actually are tuned to this. Whenever you're like out of whack and not feeling too well, I recommend just grounding, sitting next to a tree or putting your feet in the grass, and you shed your positive electrons and get rid of this dirty electricity, because we're beings of electricity, and you actually get back to this biological rhythm that our ancestors were at, and their ancestors and their ancestors and all that, because we're set to this tuned rhythm of the Earth, which is 7.83 hertz, Schumann's resonance.
Yes.
Okay, and along with that, we have the sun rising and setting, and that rhythm, that system of light, creates our circadian rhythm, which the circadian rhythm in our bodies is extremely important because our body's rhythm sets the clock, which is this 24-hour clock, right? And we're on this clock of what time of day it is. So our bodies know. Our bodies just know. And this is connected to our endocrine system, which is our hormones, right? And our bodies know exactly the time of day based on the clock that's set by the sun and the sun's UV light, which is coming off of it. Because we have these glands, and we have a pineal gland even that absorbs light, and our clocks are so set that at certain exact times of the day, different chemicals are released in our brains, in our bodies, hormones, all of it, our whole everything. So cortisol, you name it, dopamine precursors, you name it, serotonin, melatonin, all these things are released at certain times of the day. So it's very important, extremely important for a biological clock to know the time of day that it is.
Yes.
And so it gets confused when it's around blue light, because blue is right next to UV. It thinks it's sunlight. So if you get on your iPhone and it's just blasting the light, or your tablet or whatever, it's blasting this light, which is coincidentally blue light. You don't realize that, but they've embedded this crazy blue light, just blasting blue light. You look at that at midnight, right before you go to bed, and then you try to sleep, and you can actually maybe notice that your sleep is disrupted. You don't get good sleep or whatever. But then if you hadn't gotten on that device, I mean, I learned just by trial and error and seeing that pattern, but it's actually fact-based. There's Harvard studies and all this stuff. So you see where I'm getting with this?
Yes.
The blue light on your tablets, your computers, your phones, it completely disrupts your schedule. So there's this prevalence of teen suicide. It's all linked to that.
Wow.
Depression, all these things. So there was National Institute of Health study on utility workers, these utility workers who were installing cell phone towers and turning on and being right next to these things. They had an abnormal occurrence of suicide. Mm-hmm. Out of a random sample of utility workers, 10% committed suicide. Wow. And they started studying that and learned, and it's very similar to the blue light situation, that they're around so many radio waves and this new 4G and 5G tech, that the waves are so small that, again, our bodies are misinterpreting this as bright light. And when they're installing this tower at 9 p.m. and the bright light is essentially resetting your clock to noon, because it's all your body would know. So you get on your bright tablet and your body thinks it's noon, you've reset your clock, and now you're going to be screwed on your levels for the day. But if you keep doing that, then you'll get depressed and all these things. So there's a very easy solution, right? So all this information, all this stuff, right? And really, it's an important background precursor, because people need this. Otherwise, they won't do anything.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
they're not going to listen to me, the guy in the sweatshirt or whatever. Or even if I was wearing a suit, even if I had a freaking doctor's coat on, if they hadn't paid to come see me and ask me for advice.
Right.
It's not, right? So, very simple. A lot of these phones even have blue light filters, or you can get an app. There's all sorts of apps. They're free. I like one that's called f.lux. Just put that in your Google search, f.lux.org, I think it is. I actually turn it on now. You can set the clock so that it knows when your sun goes down, and then the light on your device gets more a tint of yellowish orange. You can hardly even notice, but I turn it on all the time. I just got a blue light filter on all the time now.
I have one on my phone, but does that f.lux have, can you use it on your computer and your other screens?
Yeah, totally. I'm not really worried about my phone. I've regressed in technology. I have this slider flip phone because of radiation and stuff.
I want to go back to that too.
It's totally amazing. But my laptop is totally cool, and it's always got this more warm orangish light coming off of it, because the blue light filter is always on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Where did you get your slider phone? Is it old and refurbished, or is it like new but old technology?
You can get them on eBay for $24.
Okay.
It was laying over at a friend's house, and I said, "Can I get this?" And they laughed and said, "Yeah, of course." And I turned it on, and now $30 a month, and I've got unlimited talk and text.
Yes. And you don't have to worry about all the distractions of data anyways, which is nice.
Yeah, and the thing is it doesn't emit constant radiation, which I've become slightly sensitive to non-ionizing EMF fields, or non-ionizing radiation as it's called, because I lived right next to a smart meter. I slept about 3 feet from a smart meter for about 4 months, and then I developed electrosensitivity, which involves like heart palpitations and heart aches and what have you when I'm in EMF fields for too long, or high EMF fields in general. But now I got this EMF reader, and it shows the radiation coming off of, for instance, a smartphone. And a smartphone will constantly be updating with Facebook and the weather and stuff like that. But a very, very easy solution, power saving mode. And it's not always getting the radiation. And then also, again, your device, your smartphone, your tablet, because it's emitting this field that can disrupt your sleep and what have you, if it's in your bedroom and what have you, you want to turn that thing on airplane mode when you go to sleep, right? It'll change your life forever.
Paranoid me, I started doing that, but then it started turning itself back on in the middle of the night at some point. I'm not joking. Like, I feel like people sometimes don't believe me, but my phone is out to like kill me. It changes appointments. It's like, it's a piece of shit. That's part of why I want to go back to the old technology, because I'm like, I won't have to worry about it if it's the old technology, because I won't have any of those things on it. But yeah, I agree. Turn it on airplane mode. And then I also have not gotten good about this, but I want to get better about turning my Wi-Fi off at night. You're not going to use it anyway. Turn it off. What's the point? You know, you just get in the habit of turning it on, turning it off. I got in the habit of doing the, like you were talking about, the coconut oil, oil pulling in the morning. You know, I was kind of like, when am I going to do that? That's like such a, you always feel like it's hard to make some kind of change like this. So once you start doing that, it's like, it's just part of my routine now. I put it in, like, do my shower and stuff. I leave it in for 20 minutes. And then by the time I'm like doing my hair or whatever, there we go. You know, it didn't take me any extra time at all. It's not hard. And I feel like my mouth is healthier, and I can't say I have less cavities because I didn't have any to begin with, but I feel like my gums are stronger or something. Like, you can tell the difference in mouth health just based on how you feel. So a lot of these things are like, they're simple things, and they can just help you feel better. I think you don't realize how bad you feel until you start to feel better.
Exactly. And another thing, so yes, I love swishing. I can't push it enough. Swish with coconut oil in the morning. It completely, I mean, nutrition is really important for your teeth, of course, nutrition, but the mouth and the gut, it's all connected, and having a balanced biology, it actually helps your entire body because it's working in harmony. You know, we're beings of all of these living things, but then all of a sudden we want to go and kill these things because we're disconnected, and we don't even realize that we're trying to promote a healthy environment, because we are a bunch of health cells and bacteria eating itself. And I mean, we've got all these different environments going on. So the Wi-Fi, okay, I learned about this. I couldn't believe it. So if you're interested, I cannot stress it enough. Get yourself an EMF meter. All right, you can go on Amazon.com. There's all these different types. You can get them for super cheap. The EMF meter will show you what's going on in your home. You might have a dishwasher or a clock or a baby monitor that's just blasting, and it's disrupting your sleep and you don't even realize it, or it's creating cumulative damages that you don't realize. You don't want these things in your life, right? So I had a meter, I have a couple, and one of them I just had on the other day accidentally. And I learned, because here's what I do. So I have my computer and I turn the Wi-Fi off. Now I'm on a hard line, but this is before at a different place. So I'm on a hard line now, which I recommend.
That's
a hard
better.
line. It's amazing. It's better. But when I had the Wi-Fi, I would turn the Wi-Fi off. And then the router, my Wi-Fi router, was just in the other room. And I have the meter on, doesn't pick up anything. Okay. But then when I connected my device to it, it was just going nuts. And so I realized it makes perfect sense. So the Wi-Fi router, yeah, it's pretty bad, but convince someone to go and unplug that thing every night. That's their baby, and it's a pain in the butt. And
Yeah.
they want to be on their device right before bed or whatever, you know, their habits. but it's a little easier to explain like this. Okay, so you've got natural gas. Natural gas is they've added a chemical to it, so you can smell it. You know when it's everywhere, right?
Sure.
There's these things in our world, though, that are invisible, and then we're not educated on it, and then we're just like, oh, whatever. How could it do harm? It's just a massive cell tower right there. I don't see anything, and I can't feel it. And then even the actual scientific bodies in the United States or whatever that are bought, the claim is through the FCC, what have you, that there's ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing is actual heat. You can feel the heat. And that's the only thing that they go off of. Non-ionizing, which accumulates, which after Chernobyl, they learned that there's radiation that accumulates without heat, and you can totally die from it. But in the World Health Organization, they admitted that heat isn't just the only thing, but our politicians and the FCC and everything, they claim that it's just heat that they're going to go off of. So they're putting in 5G and all this stuff, and there's obvious impacts, leukemia, and I mean, you can't even grow plants next to a Wi-Fi router, and there's women with tumors the shape of their phone in their bra, where their phone was, rats with tumors in their brains. I mean, from the Wi-Fi experience, the knowledge is right there. Right. But the paid science says only if you can feel it. So in that light, it's easy for people to just be like, well, I don't see it, and da da da. So it can't cause harm. But just imagine that it's a big pink cloud. Okay, so you're on your phone, you turn it on airplane mode, it's chilling. But then you turn on the Wi-Fi and connect it to your Wi-Fi router, whether it's on the other side of the house or it's in the next room. Now there's a big, bright pink cloud of radiation between your device and going all the way to that Wi-Fi router. Everything in between, okay? So you've got this connection cloud, right? So your tablet, your Kindle, everything. So I had an older woman. I went to her house the other day. She wasn't getting good sleep. She couldn't figure it out. She had an alarm clock that was connected to her Wi-Fi right next to her bed. You know, the router itself, it's just looking for something to connect to.
Yeah.
So it's not blasting out as much as you would think, right? Being in the same room as the router, I would definitely unplug it every night. That's not cool. But the next room over, it's shocking that it's so there's a big threshold of just learning the information and seeing it in a different way. If you just turn those devices on airplane mode, you're totally chilling. But I used to sleep with a tablet, a smartphone, and my laptop, all connected to the router. And I was sleeping in the same room as the router. Yeah, it's no wonder I developed electrosensitivity. But either way, knowledge is power, right? And now I'm mitigating all of it because, most importantly, we're going into an era where we're going to be so swamped in this stuff that it's time to learn and lessen our exposure now. Even if we don't feel the impacts immediately, we're going to want less cumulative impacts. We're going to want to learn about this now and mitigate our risks now, especially with children, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's why I got so excited when I heard about Sparrow and the clothing line that you're doing, the protection clothing, GoFundMe/protection clothing. But because I don't see a way to stop 5G, and I hope we can. And it's really hopeful to hear about your success stopping the experiments down in Arizona, or at least putting them off. And so maybe I'm wrong, and maybe there's a way we can do it. But I have to assume it's coming. It's going to go into practice, and that it's going to affect us negatively. But if there's something like that and we can wear it and it can mitigate it, then at least we have a chance to try to undo it eventually.
Yeah, and as far as the experiment being postponed in Arizona, that was a huge success, but we're still getting sprayed every single day, right. And it's not being announced publicly.
Right.
So yes, it was a very small battle won, but as far as the 5G, it won't be like that. It'll be on our doorstep, whether it's either there or it's not. So I really encourage people now to get in and talk to your people, your mayor, your county board of supervisors. Talk to them about these implications. There's, for instance, There's a fire danger that's been researched and proven and studied. There's all this research with fire danger associated with EMF fields and the plants producing overwhelming amounts of terpenes, which causes flammability. Okay, so they're bringing fire dangers to your neighborhood. Also, of course, the health impacts, which you're told you're not supposed to talk about that on the city level. But there's, for instance, the state of New Hampshire is talking about that, and they've created a panel to discuss the health and environmental impacts of 5G.
Cool.
You know, so I think it's important to talk about it because there needs to be at least ordinances in place. There's small victories being won on local levels where certain distances from schools and playgrounds and what have you for these. I mean, the more awareness that you can raise now, the better. So that these ordinances can be put in place. There's communities such as Mill Valley, California. They've restricted 5G so that it cannot be deployed in neighborhoods. Ooh. Otherwise, it'll be on your street, you know?
Yeah, right above your house, beaming it to your place where you like to relax and grow. Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think it's somewhat obvious, but I want to know how you would phrase it. What is it that you truly love that leads you forward through all of this?
A lot of it's spiritual in nature. A lot of it is little signs from the universe that I'm on track. A lot of it is the people that reach out to me. Your intro, you said I was a hero. I like that. I almost, you know, that was really touching.
Oh,
stuff like that, you know, because when I first learned about chemtrails, firstly, I started getting into it and seeing that the activism in it wasn't really there. But then when I found out that almost all the activism in that space was controlled opposition, that I was mingling with people who I have now come to terms with that they're CIA, and that the entire conversation was being controlled, and that my voice is really important. Yes. The voice of truth is so important in this empire of lies, right? And how could I look anybody in the eyes, like knowing that I could have an impact is how I feel, right? So the more impact that I have, the more responsibility that I feel like I have to make more of an impact. But it's incredibly rewarding to just, you know, just to even hear one person say, I woke up to chemtrails because of you, Matt. You know what I mean? It's huge. It's huge because I think it's a spiritual battle. I think we chose to come here to wage this weird, you know, war against falsehoods, to spread truth, to help people rise that vibration of truth, to have a higher vibrational reality, because truth is a high vibration, you know?
Yeah.
Away from fear, right?
Right. I love that you bring it there, because I mean, we were talking about it a little bit before the show, but part of my reason of doing this show is to hopefully help people see that it is a spiritual experience we're having here, and it is a spiritual battle that we're waging. And I think that's our power and our strength, is that they don't have. And by they, I mean whoever is doing 5G and chemtrails. You know, I don't know who they are and I don't care, but I don't think they have that on their side. I know they don't. And like you said, you get those little like confirmations that you're on the right path. And I think that's part of the thing for me that makes it like, this is where I'm going no matter what. And I don't think anything can stop me. And I think that that's true of any of us that are on this path. So I like to hear it. I like to hear of people who have come to that space as well. But what do you think? How do others find that motivation to kind of see the importance of this type of work for themselves?
That's a really good question. I've had people reach out to me saying, where do I start? And they don't like the answer that I give, you know, at all, because my answer is, you know, slow and steady, is like eye contact. You know, that's my answer. Yeah. My answer is eye contact. And they're like, no, I want to change the world and fight this and da da da. And I'm like, okay, you want some flyers? And they're like, no, I don't want flyers. Right? I mean, it's interesting. Some people are really motivated, but they want to really be the change right here, right now. And it's being the change changes the being. So it's like growing from within as you try to bring this truth to people in the way that you feel best. But I can't stress it enough to just start. Just start. Like, that garden is not going to plant itself, you know? And use that as a metaphor, or actually go till your backyard. Either way, you're planting seeds that maybe will or will not germinate, but you have to try, you know? And it's the next generation that we really need to honor, because we're giving them a world that's not even going to be suitable for them to procreate in.
Right.
I mean, they may not even be able to procreate. How is that? What kind of responsibility is that? I have this metaphor, speech type thing that I'm looking to refine, but I'll share it with you. The species of the monarch butterfly. So the life cycle of the monarch butterfly, they wake up, all of them as a species, they wake up together in Mexico, in the Yucatan Peninsula. And they're all born together, and there's this milkweed that's blooming, and that's their nutrition, that's everything for them. So they consume the milkweed, and they have this knowledge, this gut knowledge, that they have to go north to migrate. So they go north as far as they can go, and they're crossing mountains and cities and rivers and you name it. And then they go through their reproductive cycle again. They lay their eggs and they die. And the next generation wakes up. Same thing. Milkweed. They're following the seasons north. Then the milkweed, it blossoms, it grows and blossoms there and blooms, and they eat the milkweed and they go north. And they do this whole cycle again, right there in Colorado. And then it takes another generation to Canada, right? So it's taken 3 generations to get from Mexico to another 1,000 so miles, to then another 1,000 so miles. 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations, and they wake up in Canada.
Wow.
That generation wakes up in Canada, and they eat their milkweed, and they have to do what 3 generations just did in one life. So they have to go all the way to Mexico, right? Or the species will be completely lost, right? So we're at this there's your traffic.
There's my, there it goes.
I'm not alone. So we're at this threshold. We're at this pinnacle peak. This generation right here, everyone watching this, we are the generation that's waking up in Colorado and has to get to Canada. We're not even the generation of butterflies waking up in Canada. The next generation is that butterflies in Canada, okay? We have to set the stage and to keep that flame alive and to keep the species thriving enough so that the next generation can wake up and do what all of our predecessors set the stage for them to do, which is to make it all the way back to Mexico to keep the species alive, right? So we have to set a stage for them and to pass them a torch. If we don't give them that stage, they won't even be able to have the ability to do it.
Wow.
You know?
That's a powerful metaphor, Matt.
And I had silver coins with the monarch butterfly, and I was giving them to activists, and I was like, never forget me.
I love that.
But I can't afford that anymore.
But do you have anyone who questions whether or not now you're promoting mind control because of the whole monarch thing or whatever?
Yeah. That's one reason why I haven't told that story.
But so, I love it because we have to take that back, because monarch butterflies are not about mind control.
I know, everything is so hijacked, and yeah. So I've only told that story a few times, and it is the monarch. The monarch is a symbol for MK Ultra, which is a satanic ritual abuse frequency-based mind control, which is horrible, but also it's a beautiful metaphor for humanity and nature. And maybe I could have used the life cycle of the salmon, which is not nearly as pretty, but nature is beautiful, and we are nature, and we're fishing out into this unnatural world where the unnatural is consuming us, and we really need to get back home to our roots, which is looking after our children.
Yes.
You know?
No, I love it. I love that metaphor. I like that. That affected me. I think that it's going to affect everyone who listens to it, and it's great. And I love that you're taking back the monarch butterfly. They don't get to have it. It's not there.
No, not at all.
So who are you today because of all of your experiences and travels, and what are you grateful for that?
Who am I? Oh, wow.
Just a simple question.
Okay. Well, okay. Well, geez, I'm changing a lot. I change every day.
Yeah.
And I had an experience about 3.5 weeks ago where my favorite person in the entire world, this 7-year-old, she almost drowned, and I saved her life, and I almost drowned.
Whoa.
And I literally almost drowned. Like I came very close to dying, and so did she.
Oh my God.
And at the end of it all, I saved someone's life, and I almost died, and I'm a different person now than I was before that. Completely different. For a couple of days, I didn't even recognize myself in the mirror. So it's this. Yeah, it is incredible. So it's this accepting that I'm a work in progress, that I'm always changing, right?
Right.
And it was something to do with being able to turn myself into a chemtrail activist, which I never thought that I would ever see today.
Right.
You know, even I didn't even know chemtrails existed, let alone I would be an activist, let alone trying to convince my peers. And you know, the world that but it's this acceptance and this letting go and this transformation, just like the butterfly, right?
Yeah.
And as I'm willing to transform and change, like you asked me who I am, I'm a constant changing spiritual being. And the more that I like ask for the truth and hone in on resonate with that high vibration frequency of truth, the more all these other truths become self-evident, and these higher vibration realizations can come, you know?
Absolutely.
So what was the question?
That was the question.
What's the question?
Who are you now, and what are you grateful for because of it?
Oh, I'm grateful for the ability to just trust and transform. And again, like as you let go and really become who you're meant to be, you know, which we're all meant to serve, you know, to fight for what's right. Because if we're awake, we already came here and asked for this information so that we could bring forward these people. Because right now we're holding the torch, and we're holding that torch so others can see the way out of the darkness.
Right.
And we live in a world of duality where there's light and dark and good and bad and all these things. So seeing the flip side of all this darkness that's being shown, it's really easy to show. We just have to be that beacon. So yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to help shine that light for people. That's what I'm grateful for.
I am grateful for that as well. I mean, for you to show that way to people.
Yeah, and I'm thankful for you also, and other people who are willing to speak their truths. You know, shine that light in whatever way, you know, which is fit for them, right? Like if you like to knit, if all you can do is knit, then knit for truth is what I'd say, right?
No, I love that. That's exactly right. I had, when you were talking about that, like start where you are and just do, you know, be you and do it in whatever way works for you. I think people underestimate. I think people need like this target. Like people were begging you, like, what target should I like run at and just start destroying? And you're like, no. You know, just like start where you're at and develop yourself and do what you can to create and promote truth. That's it's not what we're conditioned to expect in a battle, but it is actually the battle.
Right, and also with the social media and the timelines and the Snapchat and Instagram and this I mean, we want things to happen so fast. Our attention spans have dwindled so much, but I cannot stress the amazing accomplishments that you can strive towards and make if you just devote your daily everything to it. Not necessarily every hour, every day, but if you're looking to have an amazing garden, then get out there every day, even if it's 10 minutes, right? And again, a metaphor for everything, but just giving it your time and your energy you would never believe that you can look back in a couple months, a couple years, and say, wow, I really have changed and did that and have this to show for it. But it took that slow and steady devotion.
Yes. Amen. And that is that daily practice, you know, it can happen in so many ways. So what we heard about some of the projects you're currently working on, you're working on Sparrow, and the GoFundMe is protection clothing, that people can go check that out. Is there anything else that you want to direct people towards?
Well, of course, there's 5G, which I'm slowly making a movie on that as it evolves.
Awesome.
I've just now moved to Ashland, Oregon, where I believe we can stop 5G here. And then I believe that the film will revolve around that success story. And in it will explain a bit about frequency and how we got to where we're at, which is really important. So there's that project. And so a lot of that can be followed and found through my YouTube channel, which is my name, Matt Landman. And then also please on Facebook, a lot of updates on there. Even though I do get censored, I've got videos that they let go, get crazy. It's very interesting what does go.
Yeah.
So I have like a 5G speech at a city that's very eloquent and inspiring and empowering and from the heart, and that will not go. Like, it won't get a lot of traction on the internet, whether it be YouTube or Facebook or whatever. If it's spiritual, questioning your humanity, if it's empowering, if it's inspiring, definitely it's getting blocked. But I did a video and I titled it "Xbox is a Weapon." You know, that's fear and scary, and it got almost 500,000 views.
Wow.
It's got like 400,000 views, this video. And then I did another video where I've got this radiation meter and there's a massive cell tower out front of Whole Foods, and I go into the Whole Foods, and that thing's gone viral. Like, they let that go. So please do follow me on Facebook so you can see the fear mongering, which I'm not all about that. I have a nice balance. If you just scroll down my timeline and see all the stuff that doesn't get seen, there's a lot of amazing stuff there, especially health oriented. So my Facebook, and please my YouTube, Matt Landman. Reach out to me. My email even, frankenskies@gmail.com. I get back to everyone. I pride myself in that, you know. Let's see, what else? Thanks. I try at least. And then Frankenskies the movie, frankenskiesthemovie.com. Please check out the movie if you haven't seen it. Even if you know everything about everything, which I know we all do. I know everything about everything, and so do you. But there's still stuff that we can learn.
Yes,
and Frankenskies the movie is exactly that. It's a documentary that's not just about geoengineering. It's not just about weather modification history. It's about all of these things that make up what chemtrails are. And it starts off with the historical chronological timeline in the 1920s. And basically, by the time you're to modern day, their historical stock footage has proven them to committing treason already on an ongoing basis. And then once you start to wrap your head around all of it, we all need to learn and know and resonate and know. We need to know that the weather can and is controlled, but especially we need to know that we can make it rain on forest fires.
Yes.
In 5 minutes time, there's devices. Even if there's a clear blue sky, in 5 minutes time, there can be a downpour, and it can be created, and the technology is there. So all of this fear and questions about these fires and what have you, let's keep it very simple. Also, these fires are being stirred up and engineered with windstorms that are geoengineered. And then also, finally, what's being sprayed on these forests for decades is aluminum oxide, which is a patented fire accelerant. But just to keep it simple, we can make it rain. Especially on forest fires. So when you start to see maybe an agenda that's displacing people, and there's all this fuss about fires, and there's even fear-mongering talking about lasers from the sky and all this misinformation, disinformation, fear this, fear that, let's think about the flip side of it, which is activism, which is empowerment through doing, which is we can make it rain on forest fires, right? That's not fear-based, that's solution-based. So if you want to spread the message on that, that'd be amazing.
Yes, I love that.
And then my website, actualactivists.com, which I've I did that myself. I put it together. I'm not a web designer. I'm very proud of it, but soon enough, I'll be paying an actual web designer to make it more mobile friendly, because it does get 1,000 people going to it every single day.
Pretty awesome.
Plural, actual activists with an S.com. Again, amazing plethora of information to share with your peers and yourself and everything. So please, yeah, give me some love online and reach out to me in the digital world. And if you're ever on the West Coast in the Pacific Northwest, you know, I'm a real person, and I'm hit me up.
Hey, I'm going to take you up on that, because I'm about to start a van journey across the continent, and I am going right through Ashland on my way the beginning of my journey. So I'll come say hi.
That would be amazing. When are you thinking?
I should be leaving end of June. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, pretty soon. All right.
Awesome.
Well,
I'll have to give you some.
I'll
have to give you some flyers to take on your way.
There we go. I was like, I didn't hear that. We're
I'll have to give you
starting
some
to break
flyers
up at the very end here, but yes, those beautiful flyers. I would love that. I'll love that. Well, thank you, Matt. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your electric, concentric, analog dose of wisdom, according to Matt Landman. Matt, thank you so much for being here today. This has been amazing. I think I
really enjoyed it. Thank you so much. You are. And thank you for having this show.
Thank you. Thank you for saying so. So friends, Edna St. Vincent Millay once wrote some beauty that went a little something like this. The world stands out on either side, no wider than the heart is wide. Above the world is stretched the sky, no higher than the soul is high. The heart can push the sea and land farther away on either hand. The soul can split the sky in two and let the face of God shine through. But east and west will pinch the heart that cannot keep them pushed apart, and he whose soul is flat, the sky will cave in on him by and by. Edna was perhaps more true than she knew. Remember that this is your sacred duty to keep the sky high as your soul, to allow God's face to shine through into this realm, and that to do so, you've got to keep your soul afire and moving in eternal action. So while you're stoking the fires, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.